Welcome everybody to another series of Simon Says. Thank you for your time. I've got two wonderful guests again today. It's been fantastic. The quality of people we get to who come along. And so today we've got, well, first I'll do the man that probably a lot of people have seen the face on TV. I heard his voice, seen him in bands. Grant Hansen, a musician, a broadcaster, of course, the host of the Marngrook Footy Show, been around for years. Grant Hansen, welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Simon. You probably should have said a jack of all trades, a master of none.
Oh, mate, I've seen you master the Marngrook Footy Show. You're okay with that, mate? Don't worry about that. And I've seen you on the guitar. You know how to play, so there's a bit of mastery.
I have a go, Simon.
Have a go. That's exactly right. Well, that's great. And joining Grant, maybe a face you don't know, but a face you'll see more of. Nikki Langman, a speaker, author, consultant, facilitator, emotional intelligence specialist, and has got a new book out we'll talk about. Nikki, welcome. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you, Simon. It's so good to be here.
Well, look, and it's great to have you. And just for starters, now, people are going to notice that's not an original Australian accent. So where are you from originally?
I am from California originally, and I have lived in Melbourne for 11 years. So I consider Melbourne home, but you will never lose the California girl from me.
No, that's good. And there's a great song about Californian girls a long time ago.
Why would you want to lose that voice? It sounds absolutely wonderful.
Am I allowed to say there's a little bit of sexiness in Californian accents? Or is that the wrong thing to say these days?
Oh, no, say it again. It is good because it gives me the flexibility. I do work in both countries. Yeah. So I can be American when I want to be and Australian when I want to be. So that's the both.
Well, just on that, I'll just say just on that, do you speak to Americans and they say, you sound a bit Australian? And for us, you still have that American, little American tinge to it.
Yes. I'll tell you, every time I speak to an American, they say, oh my God, you sound so Australian. I'm like, you know what? There is not one Australian that's going to agree with you. So.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. That's very good. Now, Grant, what's happening? How are you handling lockdown?
Oh, look, Simon, it's been difficult at times. Obviously, I'm trying to just keep positive about it as much as I can. Every day I set myself a couple of tasks between like 9 and 5 just to sort of keep myself in a little bit of a routine and get my mind off of things. But, it's been difficult, and it's been difficult for a lot of people. I mean, I haven't really worked for about 11 months now, and I did the first Marngrook Footy Show this year, so hopefully I can get back before the end of the year and do the final series. So looking forward to hoping that will eventuate. But it's been difficult, Simon. But I pick up the guitar, I watch the TV. I just try to keep myself mentally busy because I don't want to get sucked into the system of things, so to speak. I'm trying to keep myself sane by not getting too involved in it all.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the thing, the music industry and the media industry, while the media industry has some outlets, a lot of people are twiddling their thumbs and waiting for something to happen. So I hope you're writing some good songs, mate, and playing some good guitar.
I actually are. I've been rediscovering some of the old demos that I've done and starting to think, geez, maybe I should do another solo album. I've got enough songs to do that. But, when you think about what's happening right now, Simon, there's lots of other people that are a lot worse off than me and lost their businesses and probably going to lose their homes now and a whole lot of other stuff. So no matter how bad I'm going, I'm just mindful that there's a lot of other people that are really struggling a lot more worse than what I am.
Yeah, and it's look, we all have our little ups and downs, and I think the idea, and this is why I speak to Nikki. She talks about bravery, grit, integrity, and humour, and I think it's really important that we don't lose our sense of humour. And Nikki, why are those four your values first? Bravery, grit, integrity, and humour.
Those four things are my core values, and in fact, I normally have a necklace hanging around my neck that has those four values inscribed on them, as if they were my children, close to my heart. But those four things, bravery, grit, integrity, and humor, are the things that I have to live with each day to be the best person that I can be. So I have them etched in my heart and my mind every day, and especially humor, and especially this year, because I think, we're in real danger when we start to take ourselves too seriously, or the circumstances around us that we can't control. So, the great Winston Churchill once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so I have taken full advantage of that this year.
That's
And
great. Yeah, I have a brother who played a lot of games of football too. I don't like to tell him in public, but a very smart man. And he was in politics, and he always said to me, "Take your job seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously." And I think there's a big difference there, because some people say, "I'm really important." No, the role can be really important, and somebody else could maybe do it another time. So it's a good thing to have the humour involved in it, because I think you have to have a sense of humour to cope. Very good point, Nikki.
yeah.
Now, Grant, just about the music, I want to go back. I'm going to go back with both of you a little bit of how you get started. But
Yep.
how did you get involved in music, mate? So you're in the you're actually I think you're in a band called Blackfire, and I think you're one of the most successful Indigenous bands of the '90s, and I think you even got a NAIDOC award for Artists of the Year one year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And we formed in the early 90s, and we played for about 12 years, Simon. So we toured nationally and internationally. We've done China, Japan, and Taiwan, and had really big audiences over there. I mean, we're doing TV shows in China to something like 26 million people in 1996, 97, which is bigger than the Australian population. So the exposure that we got in Asia was absolutely wonderful. And yeah, look, you know, it started off as a community band, really. A lot of the gigs that we played would donate the money of the gig to the funeral fund, so we could bury our elders in the community with a bit of dignity, you know. And so it started off like that, but it sort of just grew and grew. And you know, we had Paul Hessel from Crowded House jumping on board and recording our albums and playing drums, and even your cousin Shane Howard was in and around the Blackfire scene, and Mundawi and the Pinga was another one. And you know, basically the band took off and became very popular, and you know, it created a lot of pathways for a lot of the members that were actually in that band.
No, it's fantastic. And to think about that, like people get carried away that, you know, I played football, and well, I get carried away too. And, you know, had $100,000, I wish I had that, 100,000 live crowd, and it's fantastic. But when you think about the size of the audience you can have in China, it's mind boggling, isn't it?
Well, it was, and it was quite ironic that most of the gigs that we played over there, we were the first Western band to do so, and a lot of the people that were turning up were students from the university, because they wanted to come and practice their English with us, and we wanted to practice our Chinese. So the Chinese were talking English to me, and I was trying to talk my best Mandarin back to them. So that was quite funny, but it was actually funny watching them all dance, because they could feel the energy of the music, but didn't actually have the Western rhythm to dance the rock music, but nevertheless they could feel it, and I just saw arms and legs everywhere. But it was really interesting. But yeah, for some reason, particularly in China, that we really sort of had a little niche there with the students from over there, and you know, our gigs are always pretty well packed, so it was always interesting to go over there, and they made us feel very welcome, actually.
That's great, man. Now, so dance like nobody's watching. I think there was a bit of that happening with them, so that's fun.
I was a shocking dancer, Simon and Nikki. That's why I ended up playing in a band, so I didn't have to dance and make a fool of myself. So I ended up playing guitar so I could sound and watch everyone else dancing.
So, how old were you when you first picked up a guitar?
Probably in my teenage years. I mean, as a little kid, I had toy guitars, but it wasn't until I was at my teenage years, and I sort of basically taught myself, really. A few people showed me some chords, and I went down to the record shop and brought some music books of songs that I knew by ear, and just try and sort of play along and just looking at the chords. And because I was familiar with the melodies, it was easier to pick up. But I sort of just learned off a lot of different people. My cousin Selwyn Burns, who was in Blackfire and Coloured Stay, was a very good friend of your cousin Shane Howard. And as you know, Shane's a very good guitar player.
Yes.
Great, probably underrated. People don't realise how great a guitar player Shane is. And him and Selwyn are very similar in how they played all these interesting chords and progressions that I didn't know how to play. But so Selwyn taught me a lot. You know, chords, I still don't know what the names of them are, so I know where to put my fingers, but I wouldn't know if it's ninth or whatever.
A major augmented seventh, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
All
so I just pick up stuff off different people, and just, you know, like footy, mate, you pick up the little tricks along the way and you just put it all together, and hopefully you turn out to be a better player.
That's good. Now, so music and the TV for you, Grant. Now, for you, Nikki, you're a bit of an endurance runner. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, this is where I go into these people are mad. I mean, you know, I had to do a lot. I had to do a lot of running and training when I was young. But when you start talking endurance, and how far is the longest you've run?
At the moment, 60 kilometers in one.
Yeah, so I only do that in a car. That's it.
Simon, what's that old saying? Simon wouldn't run out of sight in a month of Sundays.
That's right. Now, Nikki, how did you get into endurance running?
Oh, okay. I'd say it's been a bit of a journey. So if I may, just
Yes,
going back a little bit in time.
please, please.
So I am a recovering alcoholic and drug addict.
Okay, right.
And that has been something that has colored my landscape in a mostly negative and destructive way for most of my life. And after about 30 years of that journey, bouncing up and down, going through periods of recovery, followed by even worse periods of self-destruction, I finally was able to get out of that. And I was finally able to get some periods of lasting sobriety. And that was great, except I was still carrying a lot of emotion inside of me, negative, unhelpful emotion. And the thing is, the way I describe it is when you have a disease such as addiction, and then you take away the fix that you're using or the solution, you're still left with the problem. And so I was operating in a state for several years of dis-ease, where I was not engaging in the behavior, but I was still carrying the problem inside of me.
Very good explanation, yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I've been working on that one for a while.
No, that's good. Dis-ease, very good. Yeah.
Dis-ease, yeah. And that can be said, it doesn't have to be for something like addiction. It can be any type of behavior that we engage in that isn't helpful for us. When you remove that particular behavior, if you're not addressing what's underneath it, what caused it, or what led to those patterns, then you're never actually going to find yourself in ease. So it's it's something that in hindsight makes so much sense to me, but took years to figure out. Right. Now, I'm a very high energy person, and so the unproductive emotions that I tend to gravitate toward are things like anxiety or anger. And so here I was, basically just like this little firecracker of a person with no healthy outlet. And through a lot of trial and error, I found that running was something that helped me to release all of that emotion, all of that pent up anger, frustration, anxiety. So things like, meditation or calming, soothing routines don't work for me. Yeah, wow. The things that do work for me are jumping out of airplanes, running insane amounts of kilometers in one stretch. But you have to find what works for you. And that's a very individual journey that someone has to take in their own quest for self-mastery.
That's good. It's interesting you say. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a little bit older than you, Nikki. So when I finished my football career, I still had a lot of that. You had to get the energy out. So I jumped out of a plane, I bungee jumped, I swam with sharks on the Gold Coast, and all these things. Yeah. And it was a bit of an adrenaline. But now I'm a bit older. I don't need to do 60 Ks. 4K walk around the park's probably okay for me now. But I understand where you're coming from. That if you're an energy-based person, you want to do that all the time. And to find the right way, it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. But the right way is, and that's for you. It's endurance running, and I'm going to say this wrong, Kyokushin karate. Is that how you say it?
Kyokushin,
karate as well. So you're gonna run a long way and then belt somebody. Is that right?
Yes, pretty much. It takes the expression "fight or flight" to a whole new level, or hit and run. I mean, use your humor.
You go on. Keep going.
I did undertake Kyokushin karate, which is a very hard style of karate. It's a very fighting style, and that was only something I started to engage in about 2 years ago. Because I had a 9-year-old son at the time, and I wanted to get him into some sort of sport, and martial arts really appealed to me for the whole package of self-discipline, focus, as well as the physical fitness. And he was very apprehensive. He's not like me. He is a very cautious, risk-averse child. And so I said to him, again, part of my core values of integrity is I said, I will never ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And so
that's a big statement.
It is. It sure is. But for someone like me, I believe in it so deeply that I will always uphold that, and I will never ask him to do anything that I won't do. So now for the last 2 years, we have trained and fought side by side.
Fantastic. That's great. It's good. It's good to see when the mum and the child connect together in some way. That's fantastic. And an interesting one, a big connection for dads and daughters is sport too. So it's interesting way it works. And now, Grant, is 40 person growing up?
Oh yeah, most definitely, Simon. Football and cricket. I breathed both of those sports, and actually I did martial arts for 10 years myself. I done Zendu Kai, and did a little bit of Kokushin Kai as well when I was a little bit older, and a bit of Tai Chi. But sounds like you guys are adrenaline junkies. You're like, well, I could never imagine myself jumping out of a plane. I'd refuse. Sharks, I'm scared of them ever since I've seen the movie Jaws. And so, yeah, I like to play it a bit more safe. I like the sort of relaxation stuff and meditation. But interesting what Nick was talking about, Simon, because I worked at Galliamble, which is an alcoholic recovery centre in another life in St Kilda. So they've done the 12 Steps Alcohol Anonymous program, and I work with a lot of people. And just interesting what Nick was talking about, because I found a lot of people really, get into substance abuse because of trauma that's happened in their time, and their trigger points for them to start drinking or to start drugging. So I really identify some of that stuff that Nikki was talking about then.
No, very good, very good. I was going to say, and you both done some martial arts. I said, for me, the best I could do would be folding. What do you call it when you fold paper? Paper into little shapes. That's about the only.
Origami.
What is it? Origami. Yeah, I could. The deadly art of origami. I could fold you into a paper plane. That's about it. I think that's all I could do.
Well, Simon, you would have seen Fist of Fury when you were a kid. Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon, and I've got to do karate.
Oh, mate, at that age, growing up, Bruce Lee just became a cult hero. More than a cult hero, and a man could do that, and and all that, and the way the whole that's it, and the way the whole body just was involved in it. Everything was just wow. I felt, I can't do that, so that was easy.
You're too tall.
Yeah, no, I am too tall, mate. That's good. But now, just on that, we're talking about in past life. But for you, mate, how because you started the Marngrook Footy Show. You virtually put it together, come up with the idea, and put it, and then produced it. Hosted, etc. Where did that come from for you?
I was watching a footy show on a Sunday with Rex Hunt and the boys, and there was another one on Channel 9 as well. And a realisation came to me was that there was no Aboriginal people on the panel. And I thought, no Indigenous people anywhere in the AFL media. It was just that thought that triggered that. And I thought to myself, I'm going to make up my own AFL Indigenous footy show. That was the essence of it. And so I went to 3CR where I was doing a music show, Koori music show I used to do there. And I said to them, I want to start up a football show. And I spoke to the program manager, and he sold it to the board, and they came back to me and said, no, it's not something that sort of fits our agenda here. And a couple of weeks later, I went back again and convinced them to give me a chance to do a couple of shows, and they did. And I think in the next year, it won the best sports show on community radio across Australia. And it just took off from there. So I did that for 12 years, Simon. And in the last 5 years, I did it with Terry Wheeler, who's ex-Western Bulldogs coach, and one of your old opponents. And Sam Pang, who's now the star of the front bar, and Are You Paying Attention? And so Sam, me and Wheels done the last 5 years on radio. Then National Indigenous Television came to fruition, and they heard about AFL Marngrook Footy Show, and they asked me if I'd be interested in doing it on TV. I said, yep, most definitely. And that's how the show started. So 13 years this year on TV and 12 years on radio. So 25 years of my life I've been involved in producing and writing and, doing Marngrook Footy Show.
And it's a good point you make, because our football is made up of they talk about the history of the MCC and where footy started there, but the whole concept of Marngrook and the Indigenous sport that's been around for if most of the 50,000-60,000 years of the Indigenous population is very much a part of the modern game. And I keep saying you need a little bit of both. You need the structure of the MCC type historical football, as we know, but the flow and the artistry of Marngrook, and those two together, you get a really good product.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point you make there, Simon. The game of Marngrook, a lot of people confusing this. It's not Aussie rules football exactly. Some of the Marngrook game we see in Aussie rules football now because of the way that we played Marngrook, the marking and the kicking style and stuff. So some of the traits came into the game through Indigenous players playing the game. So I think that's important for people to realise that. But, you know, Ted Whitten, the greatest player of all, was a big fan of Aboriginal football for many, many years before it became popular for AFL clubs to recruit Indigenous players. And he used to rave about the style of game and how quick and fast and exciting and the skill level and how it just went pinging from one end of the ground to the other. So Ted would be very happy now to see how AFL football is played now because it's pretty much like he envisaged it would be.
Oh, that's it's great. It's very good. So it continues to develop, and I think that's the great thing about the Indigenous population of the footy. It just gives, the Indigenous population of Australia is about 2%, if I'm right, and shoot me down in flames with stats, but
3%, yeah,
3%, yeah, but there's about 17-18% of the football population is Indigenous. So it just shows how important it is and how great a game it is for the inclusion of the Indigenous population and what it means for the people who watch.
Yeah, well, Simon, there's only, if you look at that stat, 3% of the population, that's about 400,000 or 500,000. And every weekend, there's 90,000 people participate in Aussie rules football. The coaching, playing, trainers, 90,000. So that's like a quarter of our population every weekend are participating in Aussie rules football. Yeah, by far the number one sport for Indigenous people. But someone like yourself had the absolute honour and pleasure of playing with people like Michael Long and Derek Kickett. And Essendon's had a huge history of Indigenous players and the North Melbourne Football Club and Carlton. So, you would have seen a lot of those players up close and personal and just seen some of the magic that they could turn on the football field.
But also I've said regularly that also the education, especially Derek Kickett, but then especially Michael Long, the education they gave me as a white fella in football and not really knowing that the Indigenous history and just getting a very narrow education about it as growing up, for them to enlighten me has been fantastic for me as a person. So I really do cherish the connection I've made with those people.
Well, that's exactly the same thing with the Marngrook Footy Show. To me, it wasn't just an Indigenous footy show. Yes, the host happened to be Indigenous, but the show was about bringing people together through the love of footy, making that connection so that people could get to know each other through that platform. And obviously, as you would know, that worked really, really well. And Marngrook, as I used to tell people, is a footy show for everyone. Just to label it as an Indigenous footy show would be selling it short, because it really was a reconciliation vehicle and bringing people of all walks of life together. So Marngrook was able to achieve that. I don't see that happening on any other footy shows.
No, it's a good point, mate. It's a great point. Now, Nikki, I know you American background. Your husband is an Essendon barracker, but let's be honest, you aren't really a football follower, though, are you?
No, I'm not.
And that's okay. That's okay in this world.
I am subjected to it when I don't have control of the remote. And I happily
sound like torture.
Well, he could say the same for my choice of activities too. But I happily do sit back and learn, because I'm a great gridiron fan. That's the sport I grew up with.
So who do you follow? Do you have a specific team you're following over there?
Oh, I'm from Los Angeles, and they really screwed around with us over the last 30 years, because we had two teams, and then we lost two teams, and now we have two teams back. So I don't really know who to be loyal to.
Yeah, that's good.
But in America, it's very geographic. So, if you grow up in Wisconsin, you are a Green Bay Packers supporter. You don't have a choice about that. So one thing I find so intriguing about Australians, and especially Melburnians, is that you can have a family of 6 with 6 different loyalties. And I don't understand that. I might have been disowned if I'd tried that.
Yeah, no, it's well, I said to my kids growing up, you can barrack for any team you like, but if you want to live in this house,
don't barrack for Collingwood.
No, don't barrack for Collingwood. But now, just on that, high performance. I'm always big on high performance and getting people to understand what that means. And now, Nikki, you've got a book. You brought out a book, and it's called, I love the title, How to Be Badass. Or Badass, if it's American, How to Be Badass.
Badass.
Navigating your road to self-mastery. Now, you've got to tell us about this.
Oh, yes, I will. So the Badass framework is something that I developed over many hundreds, thousands of kilometers on the road when I was running. And, you know, I get lost in thought. I get lost in pondering life's biggest questions when I've got hours at a time with, you know, nothing but introspection. And so I started to really ponder the question, how can I be my most powerful self? And what does that take? What does that look like to be our most powerful selves? And it's funny, you know, there's a really big phrase word that goes around. You see it so much in business nowadays. You know, show up as your best self, bring your best self, bring your A game. But what we don't define is, what does that mean? What does that look like to be the best version of yourself? And coming from someone who has not been the best version of myself more often than I have been, or for more years at this point, I understand what it's like to not function at your best. So I really wanted to explore, well, what does it look like? So I developed a framework called Badass. And I noticed when I started to first speak about how to be a badass, that the word itself wasn't always landing with people the way I wanted it to. Because I think of a badass as a very positive thing. You know, Simon, you're a badass. Grant, you're a badass. To me, that's a compliment. But it wasn't always being received that way. So
I've been called worse.
I was going to say they'd called a lot worse than that, so that's easy. I'll take that one.
So I over time I thought, well, all right, how do I make this be perceived the way that I would like it to be? And so I broke it down into an acronym. And so the framework was born from the 6 letters of the word badass, and they stand for bravery, bravery, authenticity, direction, action, self-love, and you have to say it, because you will become what you tell yourself you are. So that's the concept. And then the book just kind of, it was something that I wrote while in lockdown. So, you know, making the most of 2020, I decided to put all of my ideas, all of my thoughts, concepts, and the experiences that I had learned myself. So trudging my own road to self-mastery, you know, I put it all together into a compilation that I am hoping will inspire and empower people to dig deep in themselves and find their inner badass and be badass every day.
That's great. Now, we all, I mean, everybody likes to have a perfect life, and of course we all have ups and downs. And you've actually, you know, openly talked about your past. What for you was the hardest part of overcoming that obstacle about, I have to take this next step out of where I am, and I don't like being where I am, and getting to that next step? What was the hardest thing for you to do, or the most confronting thing?
Overcoming shame.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, I think when we do things that we're not proud of, we can hurt other people, but the person that we hurt the most is ourselves. And when you compound that over a long period of time, digging yourself out and forgiving yourself can be an arduous journey, and one that many people never successfully master, because while they might be forgiven by others, they fail to forgive themselves.
Yeah, very good. Very good point. Yeah. And it is, yes, people have, yes, yeah, I just agree. Yes, I know people who fit that category. Grant, you in your life, what's have been obstacles you've had to overcome?
Oh yeah, of course. Just being Indigenous is one, but
I was going to say that in the white fella world, you know, I'm 62, so I grew up in the, you know, now the whole concept of how people are working towards reconciliation is magnificent. But I've come from the, you know, the old, very much the 60s, 70s, 80s white fella world. For being the black fella in that world, how did that go for you?
Oh, look, you know, because I was born in the Toorak of the western suburbs out at St Albans, I grew up there and bought a Footscray. I was quite fortunate in St Albans. It was a very multicultural society. Yes. So the common white Australian was a minority, really. So a lot of my friends are Greek and Italian, and they recognised me as being a real Australian. So I didn't really have a lot of racism. But the only time it really happened, Simon, was when I played cricket and football. I think it black wog because I didn't know what I was. But I was one of those people, right or wrong, if I cop racism, I'd give it back. I was one of those people. People it would affect. But getting back to obstacles and stuff, my parents split up when I was 12 or 13, and my mother's the Aboriginal side, and Mum was a very strong woman and very well principled, and she used to say to me, "Love, you make your own luck." Yeah. So I took that adage that anything I tried was all about having a go. So I tell people now that the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I had a go and I made my own luck, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny how what's that old saying? The harder I try, the luckier I get.
Yeah, well, that adage as well. And like, I'm not, as I tell people even now these days, I'm not talented really at anything. It's just that I had a go, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. Basically. And I talk about the Marngrook Footy Show, 350 odd or 370 live shows, and I reckon I've watched about. I've watched all those episodes and thought to myself, I've done 6 shows really, really well. The other 370, I need to improve myself. So I'm my harshest critic, Simon.
No, but it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because if you want to get better, I've always said, don't be soft on yourself, because there's an auntie or an uncle who'll do that. Oh, you'll be right. Don't be hard on yourself. There's a boss or somebody else who'll just be honest with yourself. And I think if you're honest with yourself, then you can make really good decisions. And Nikki, sorry, you keep going, Grant. Yeah.
And Nikki would know this too, that, when it comes to healing and getting off of drugs and alcohol and stuff, you probably need some good mentors around you. I know, Simon, you had a lot of through football, and Nikki would probably identify this in the programs that she runs. That you've got to have people that can keep you level-headed, people that can give you good advice. For me, it was community elders and family, and I think they're really important people to have in your life path.
No, look, it's a very good point. We all you need to take very good point, mate. You need to take control of your life and be in charge of it. You need a whole lot of people. You can't do it by yourself. You need a whole lot of people to help you get there along the way. But you're in the end, you're in charge. And as you say, Nikki, that the concept of self-mastery is really important. But it's a great concept. But you can't do it by yourself. You need people around you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a village. And yeah, it's interesting. Village is about 150 people. I've seen some research where they reckon that the right amount, and they did some research on Facebook, and they said that even though you might have 10,000 fans on Facebook, you actually interact with about 12 people regularly per day, and you seriously interact with about 150 people a year, which, funnily enough, is a village. So it's
the important thing about mentors and people that you take advice from is that they've got to be honest with you. They've got to tell you the good things and the bad things. It's no good pumping up your tyres. People say to me, "Oh, that was a great show last night." And I think, "Oh, no, it was average." So you don't, not every show can be great. Not every game that you play can be great. So you need people to be really honest with you, and taking criticism on board is something that you learn to adapt to and take on without getting too personal. Taking it personally to yourself. So you need good friends that can tell you the good and the bad.
Yeah, and you're right, mate. And there's the old criticism, but there's constructive criticism. The thing everybody in the outer in football is pointing, and they can criticise you, but there's someone who can sort of get to you and say, "Look, this is what I think," and can do it the right way. And I think we spoke to Bob Murphy, ex Bulldogs player, great man, and the captain, and I loved his concept where he said. Talked about leadership, and he said, "Well, you've got to hug people and you've got to push people, and you've got to have the right balance. Sometimes you give them a hug, sometimes you've got to push them to get going." And I thought it's a nice little way of saying good mentors will hug you, but they'll also give you a little bit of a push too, won't they?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, Nikki, in your line of work as a speaker, author, consultant, facilitator, and an emotional intelligence specialist, how do you see the mentor?
Well, there's something I talk about that I think defines it well, and that's the difference between admiration and inspiration. So there can be lots of people that we admire for a particular reason. We think of them as having great achievements or successes that we would like to see ourselves one day have. But the people that you should focus on are the ones that inspire you, that cause a change within you. So when I think of the difference, I think admiration is someone who I look at on a pedestal. For instance, in the running world, Eliud Kipchoge, the gentleman who just ran the first sub-2 marathon in 2019.
That's right, yeah.
I watched that with absolute astonishment, and I admire him for doing that. But that's never going to be a goal of mine. I will never run a sub-2 marathon, nor do I want to.
And
So
neither will I.
neither will you. So I have to differentiate who I choose to follow. And so the people that inspire me are the ones that are on a similar journey to me, but maybe just a little bit farther down the road. So the mentors that I have cause a change in me. They have something that I want and that's within my reach. So I think that we have to be very selective of who we choose as mentors, because if they're out of our reach, they will always be out of our reach. But if you choose people that have an impact on you, that inspire you and do something to you from the inside out, then those are the people worth investing in.
Very good point. And so that leads me to as leadership. So you people as leaders in your field, what's leadership for you? Nick first.
Leadership, it has to start with you. And this is where, 100% of my focus is when it comes to self-mastery and leadership, is we cannot effectively lead others until we lead ourselves first. So, it has to start with you. And I have spent countless hours and time with people in business settings who want to focus on the team. They want to focus on the business. They want to focus on improving others, inspiring others, but they actively choose to ignore their own behaviors, their own actions, their own emotions. And to me, it doesn't work that way. Again, it's being inspired. To inspire others, you must inspire yourself first.
Very good. I speak to people regularly about look after yourself, because you are your greatest resource. And that means you have to really look after this. And a lot of the things you talk about is that introspection, that I've got to check on this before I go outside. So it's a very good point. And Grant, being in the world of music, being in the world of sport, being in the world of media, what's leadership for you?
Well, I think leadership's all about leading by example.
Yeah.
And particularly in the Aboriginal community, I sort of walk amongst my people, not above them. And I think leadership is important, that you walk with the people that are beside you. And there's an Aboriginal mural at the Aborigines Advancement League, which is a huge mural, and it's all our political forefathers and community elders that started the movement and the Aboriginal organisations. And I'm fortunate enough to be one of the people up there, one of the younger people up there, all them elders. And they're the ones that I look up to and I aspire to, a bit like Nikki was saying before. They're the people that I looked at and admired and thought, I want to do what they do, and I want to carry the torch and all the knowledge and wisdom that they empowered into me to keep our community going and strong and active. And hence, I'm on a number of committees. I'm on the RecLink committee. Simon got about four months ago, and that's working with the underprivileged people that, the forgotten by society. And I'm on the media board at 3K near the radio station. So I'm on quite a lot of boards, but it's what those elders instilled in me. And now I'm called a leader because I'm able to get things done, but I learn off of them.
Yeah, that's very good. There's always something. The day you stop learning is the day you die. We're always continuing to learn. I always ask this question, and it may be in some ways, Nikki, you've already answered this, but if you had the opportunity to grab somebody who was moving into your place or into your world or your style of work, or what's one bit of advice you'd give them?
Don't give up on yourself. So bottom line, that should be the mantra that we carry at all times, every day, is do not give up on yourself. Because to me, success in any way is just a dance between perseverance and action. So
very good. I like that one. Very deep and meaningful, that one. Perseverance and action. That's good.
Perseverance and action. You have to have both. And you will never have success at anything if you stop persevering or if you stop taking action. It just won't work. So no matter what obstacles you're facing, no matter what challenges arise, no matter what is happening in the world around you that you cannot control, you keep going and you keep believing in yourself, and you make you, in your self-love, the center focus of your life. And then you will start to radiate onto others.
Fantastic. And Grant, so one bit of advice, whether it's for the muso or the Indigenous person moving into the media or any area that you've been in, what's one bit of advice you'd like to give somebody if you could?
Oh, look, I think obviously you just be yourself. And but for me, I learn from the Aboriginal perspective where you observe a lot. So I watch people that come on the show and I pick out things I like about what they do and I put all those things together and try and take that on as well. So observing and taking in a lot of stuff really put me in good stead as well. So, as I said early on, it's all about having a go and just having the confidence to do it. And hopefully that will give you enough tools to be able to achieve what you want to do.
Well, Nikki and Grant, I could do this for about another couple of hours, but we have to be realistic in time frame. Really good stuff, people. Look, just think of this. I love speaking to people who just keep educating me, and we're all on an educational journey. Nikki, I hadn't met you before, and you were, sort of somebody suggested you come and talk to us. Thank you very much. Been fantastic. Grant, I've known you for a long time, and I always love your work, mate. You really work hard on being inclusive. Like they talk about society being inclusive for the Indigenous people, but you're one of these Indigenous people who include us as well, which I think is a two-way street. It's fantastic. Yep. So, people, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks very much for your time. Good luck for the future in this strange and wonderful 2020. And hopefully we can catch up again. For all the people out there viewing, hope you've got something out of that. I've got a lot. Thank you very much for being part of Simon Says this time round, and we'll hopefully see you again on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Simon.